Have you ever asked yourself, why am I like this? Like, why is it hard for me to accept love? Or why is it that I shut down during conflict? Or why is it that I push people away when they try to get close to me?
Elevate with Monique. Elevate. Elevate with Monique.
Hey, hey, welcome back to another episode of Elect Elevation with your hostess, me, Mo. And we have been talking about healing while mothering. And the reason that I wanted to highlight this in this month, the month of May, is because this is the month that we typically celebrate Mother's Day. And while it is bittersweet for some, it's also an opportunity for us to remember as mothers how we can show up through our healing journey for our children. So, in the last video, I hit on this topic, but we are going to dive deeper into it. And that is generational cycles or generational curses, depending on what you want to call it. And really, what I want to do is I want to break down four different types of generational curses. And the reason I want to talk about this and why I feel like it's so important is because many of us have things that have happened in our past that we subconsciously carried over into the way in which we parent our children. And what happens is our children then begin to perpetuate that same cycle if unchecked. Okay. And so hopefully outlining some of these generational curses or cycles will give you an opportunity to identify if there are areas in your life where you are passing down a generational curse or generational cycle. Now, it doesn't matter how old your children are. Don't feel like because your kid might be 25 that you can no longer reverse the effects of generational cycles because it's never too late to start. All right, so let's get into it. Now, have you ever asked yourself, why am I like this? Like, why is it hard for me to accept love? Or why is it that I shut down during conflict? Or why is it that I push people away when they try to get close to me? Well, I know that that's something that I started to ask myself because I couldn't understand actually all of those happened in my life. I would push people away. I didn't want people to get close to me. I definitely got to a point where I was asking myself, why am I this way? Why do I think this way? Why do I feel this way about myself? And it wasn't until I started to go on my own healing journey, on my own self discovery and exploration journey, that I was able to track certain things back to my childhood and even things that happened to, my parents or my great grandparent, excuse me, my grandparents or my great aunt in their lives, right? And so what happened was those things showed up in my life and then I started to realize that they were a part of my everyday life, and in most cases, I really didn't like it. So let's talk a little bit about some of the generational cycles. The first one is going to be learned behaviors and beliefs. And that is exactly what I just said. It's something that I learned over time, right? Just by the way in which I was raised, by the environment in which I was raised in, I learned certain things over time. I learned to be a perfectionist because the environment that I was in, I never felt anything that I did was good enough. And so I kept trying to do more. I kept trying to get it right. I kept trying to prove something because I wanted to be accepted as finally getting something right. And so I developed this mindset of perfectionism. Everything's got to be perfect. It's got to make sense. It's got to be in this pretty little box, right? But The thing about it is that one, what you see consistently, you start to repeat. So I started to expect that from my children, right? I expected perfectionism from my children, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. So I saw it consistently, I started to repeat it, and then I put it on to my children. And a lot of times these can include so many different things, from money to gender roles, to work, to mindset, to words, to attitudes. They can include so many different things. So you want to identify areas where you've picked up learned behaviors and beliefs. And really, a great exercise to do is write down a list of 10 things that are your belief system, thoughts, and ideas right now. Okay. And then I want you to go through that list, and I want you to identify, was this something that I was taught? Or is this a belief that I developed for myself? You would be amazed at how many things we believe, and the way in which we behave today is actually not ours. It does not belong to us. Okay. So the first generational cycle is learned behaviors and beliefs. The second one is through unhealed trauma and emotional wounds. That is another way that generational cycles can show up. Now, trauma is not something that is hereditary, but if you don't process it, if you don't deal with it, if you don't acknowledge it and heal it, then all you do is pass that trauma down to your children. Okay, I'll give a real life example. So, when I was younger and lived in my grandmother's house, um, she always would call me fast. And y'all know what I'm talking about, like, little fast little girl. Meanwhile, I wasn't I don't think I was being fast at all. I was a young girl, living in the neighborhood that I lived in. I wasn't boy crazy at the time. I had, a small group of friends, and we liked to hang out, but nothing about my life, I felt like at that time, was me being fast. But what I learned is that my grandmother had my father at a fairly early age in life, right? And so what I put together is that because she had my dad at a very early age, I think it was something like 15 or 16, I believe that she wanted to avoid me becoming a mother at 15 or 16. But instead of helping me to make good decisions to not become a mom, she was passing her trauma down to me, right? She was passing her pain down to me because she had not processed her own pain. So that's an example of just trauma that is not processed, that was passed on to me. Now, this can show up as fear, it can show up as control, as emotional disconnection. I believe that in this same experience that I'm talking about, it showed up in emotional disconnection, and it also showed up in control, because she didn't sit me down and say, listen, baby, I don't want you to go down the path that I went down, because this is what happened to me at your age. I want you to have a better experience. No, that was not the communication. So when I started having conversations like that with my children, I didn't want to pass that mindset on to my kids. I didn't want them to deal with that trauma that was put on me. I would talk to my children and tell them, I don't want you to be like me. Here are some of the things where I messed up, and I don't want you to follow in my same footsteps. And so I would give advice on other ways to handle certain things, because I did not want to pass down that trauma to my children. Okay.
Stay tuned for part 2 of Healing While Mothering. And if you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe.